morning. Welcome to the Science of Mind class here at CSLDallas. I'm Dr. Petra, and we are so happy to be together on the 4th of July weekend and grateful that you're joining us. So grateful to have Ryan in his seat because we are missing Richard. He's on vacation for the next couple of weeks, our fabulous cameraman. So, yeah, you get one shot and one shot only for those of you who are online. We also want to say thank you to Val Guillaume for bringing her fabulous art. This is a whole different side of Val's art. For those of you who know Val's art, it's usually clothing, and she does a lot with clothing. She does a lot of really amazing things, and she does also do hangings, but now this is all fabric material. She paints it. It's beautiful. It's really cool. So thank you, Val, for sharing your art with us this month. And we'll let you know when she's going to be here so that you can meet her and purchase some of her art. All right. So we are stopping and lingering in this very fabulous section on spirit, soul, and body in our relationship with the infinite reality, with spirit, with the universal presence, with the oneness. Relationship is a little dicey word. We use that dicey word relationship because that's how we normally think about it. What is our relationship to God? What is our relationship to the whole? What is our relationship to the infinite? What is our relationship to what's going on around us? But we have to understand that the word relationship assumes duality. It assumes that we're here and that thing is there, whatever that thing is, we're having a relationship with. But it is an entry point into the conversation. What is the relationship between the infinite and the finite, especially as it relates to being a human being? A human being. And as we started a few weeks ago in this whole section, right, how it relates is that we are the offspring, have the same consciousness and the same kinds of activities as the infinite, because we are actually the universal expressing itself individualized as a human being. So we're going to talk about this because this sense of separation is so critical to our awakening, and it is so reinforced by our physicality that it's really important to start imagining it differently, having the mystical experience in meditation differently, so that we can actually rearrange in our consciousness what we understand to be true about us, to be true about ourselves, because it shifts entirely our identity and where we're standing when we are engaged in our own lives. So we're going to continue on with this on page 112 and 113. I really want to highlight some things. You'll see that this is a lengthy subchapter. I recommend that you read it and read it again and read it again and read it again. Every once in a while, we come to a section where he's really trying to engage with some of the really difficult transitions and initiations that we go through in our spiritual growth. And this is one of them. Who really are we? And how does this work for us? How is this for us? So remember, we talked about, right, spirit, soul, and body. Those aspects of the one infinite reality that we've been talking about from the universal point of view are present as us. We too are spirit, soul, and body. We have a physical body. We have a physical experience. We have the conditions of our life. And we have this, let's see. Let's stop and see. I'm going to pick out some different sentences from what we talked about last week, because these paragraphs are so chock full of really valuable ways of trying to get a hold of these ideas. And let me just stop and say it's really okay to start with trying to understand them intellectually. It's really okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But then we continue to work with it and work with it. We imagine it, we process it, we bring metaphor to the experience. We have spiritual experiences, we read it about other people. And what we're trying to do is drip it out of the intellect into our experience, our felt lived experience. We open our intuition to see intuitively, does it resonate? Intuitively, what about this make sense? Intuitively, how could I get a hold of this? Right? And so it's perfectly fine to start with an intellectual understanding, but it can't stop there. That's just not enough. Okay, so let's go to the middle of 112, right in the middle of that paragraph. Always when Ernest Holmes italicizes something or has it in all caps, well, you know how that is with you. You know, when you text to all caps, always means you're shouting. Pay attention. And italics is also, it's a different level of like, pay attention to what he's trying to say. That which we call our objective or conscious mind comes through that which we call our objective or conscious minds comes what we know of God and life. The objective or conscious mind is the spiritual mind for which we have been looking, but it is not fully developed. If this were not so, there would be no mind with which to look. So our sense of separation is only a sense of separation, right? If we didn't have something within us that could recognize the infinite, we wouldn't be able to see it. This is what he's talking about. There is that kind of perception within us, right? Looking, seeing is perception that can perceive the reality. Otherwise, we would not be able to see it. And he interchangeably, remember that he interchangeably uses the words objective and conscious mind. He does not mean the rational left brain. I cannot stress this often enough. By objective, he means that part of us that has awareness, that can notice that we notice, that can see that we're seeing. That's what he means by objective. You can't use English, you can't use psychology as an understanding for the way that these words are being used, right? It's the ability to perceive and notice that you're perceiving something. The conscious mind, that which is conscious, which is aware, which is able to ask questions and say, wow, let me look at what I notice. Okay, so you have to really work to not use the traditional ideas of what these words mean. Therefore, the objective mind must be the spiritual mind of a human being, since it is the only thing about us which knows that we have life and is conscious of itself. Do you see? By conscious mind, he means self-awareness. It is the only part of us that can know that we're alive and that can be conscious of ourselves and ask the questions and explore. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's why these sentences are so important, because he's defining what he's talking about. And we use the words differently today. So we really want to understand. Now, here's the kicker. Beginning of the next paragraph. The whole of spirit is potentially focused in our individual objective consciousness. The whole of spirit. Not some part, not an itty little bit, not, favored, not if we're favored, right? The whole of spirit is potentially focused in our individual objective consciousness. But we have not yet evolved into a realization of this. That is our sense of separation, our sense of being merely human, our sense of being separate from this infinite. So we approach and contact the larger spirit through our own spirit or conscious mind. Notice that spirit and conscious mind there are used as synonyms for each other. So again, he's not talking about the rational linear brain. He's talking about our self-awareness, our conscious awareness, and our ability to notice, right? This is the very thing that we awaken in our meditation practice. In our meditation practice, we are awakening the observer, the ability to be aware that we're aware, the ability to recognize consciousness and to expand into not only from our consciousness, but to expand into that universal consciousness. Right? So this is why these two, our intellectual work and our mystical work, our meditation, they're both required. They dovetail. Do you see what I'm saying? We're coming at it from two different directions so that we can continually get closer and closer and more fully engaged in what do we mean by this? The doorway to the absolute stands open at the center of our intuitive perception. There's a mouthful. The doorway to the absolute stands open, right? Knock and you shall find, ask and you shall receive, right? It stands open. There's nothing on the absolute side that is saying, well, did you deserve it? Did you earn it? Are you good enough? Blah, blah, blah. Are you, in the right organization? Whatever. It stands open at the center of our intuitive perception. Okay, that's like almost an oxymoron, right? Because perception is what we perceive, usually through our senses, but it's also intuitive. So it's all of our ability to take in what is actually going on. It's not limited just to our physical experience. It's not limited to our five senses. So it's this larger experience. And as we are doing that, we are at the doorway to the absolute. So then listen to this. We enter the absolute through that which appears to be finite. What is that? Our limited experience, our limited understanding, our limited ability to perceive, those parts of our intuition that are not cultivated or that we don't trust, right? We enter the absolute through that which appears to be finite, because the finite must be drawn from the infinite. So we enter the absolute through ourselves. So this is where it's really interesting. We're not Buddhists. We do not say, oh, you set yourself aside, and then the spirit comes in and somehow magically takes care of everything. Right? That's simply restating God's will in other words. Oh, it's God's will. I'll wait for what God wants. I'll wait, and that gets translated into, well, I'll just wait and see what Spirit wants. I'll just wait and see what Spirit has in mind. No. Through that which appears to be finite, because the finite must be drawn from the infinite. This spirit which animates us is the same spirit which animates all life and everything that lives. I think we talked about that last week. Was it in here somewhere? We talked about it. Maybe it was here. Maybe it was last week's seminar. One way to get a hold of spirit as a presence is to focus on the idea of life. Right? I love Thomas Troward. He says this. He says, do you think an elephant has more life than a mouse? No. Right? Of course not. Doesn't matter that one's big and one's little. It's life. Does a plant have any less life just because it can't move around? No. It's alive. 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 It's life. It's life. It's life. It's life. Right? We'll eventually extend that to consciousness because we don't see rocks moving and, in the same way, but that's a whole nother story. And so, but it begins to help us, like, this spirit, which is everywhere and animating everything, is that which is us, right? Because you don't say, well, there's me and then there's my life, my aliveness. Wouldn't that be silly? There's me, Petra, my ego, my personality, my trauma, my blah, blah, blah. And then there's my aliveness. That would be silly. My aliveness is what allows me to be me and how I then engage. It's they're right. So even they don't even have a relationship with each other. It's actually the same thing. It's aliveness, my life expressing through me. Like life expressing through a rose is still life, but it's different than life expressing through a sequoia tree. It's still life. So this is where we want to start cultivating and overcoming this sense of separation. And if we have to do it intellectually to start out with, that's okay. And we continually process this idea. It is the same life that is causing the sun to warm the earth, to be this magnificent thing that allows us to have life here on the planet, is the same life that's moving as you and me. It's the same life that has been and always will be animating all of creation. Do you see? And for me, sometimes when I take away a little bit of the religious language, I feel less separate. Because I still hold a little bit of that old, God. Then if you just use the word spirit and don't really pay attention, spirit and then is out there somewhere. And, and we're constantly having to question or explore what am I imagining? What am I feeling, sensing when I use these words? If there's any sense of somehow it's out there and I have to get to it, we have a sense of separation, right? Of course it's out there. We're not the universe. We're not running the universe. We're not managing the universe. We will never be able to encompass the infinite, intangible mystery that is so mysterious. We will never be able to understand the wholeness of it, right? That's a given, but we're not separate from it. And that which is us, we can in fact understand, touch, contemplate, engage with, and we can grow our ability to perceive the larger. And perception is different than imagination or thinking about. Perceiving is the ability to actualize it for ourselves. Do you see? So, which is okay, don't go on that tangent. Never mind. Don't. Okay. So let's stop there. We're going to say good morning to Ryan and good morning to all of you out there, and happy 4th and everybody who's joined us since we started. And let's see what's going on.
Well, a happy 4th of July weekend to you too, Dr. Petra, and hello to everybody here on campus. And for all the folks that are joining us all over the globe online, welcome. And we love being with you today. So that kind of opens up Pandora's box there with questions and comments. I can see Russ's thought brow already articulated. So we'd love to hear from you. And for those folks here in the room, I have Joe over here who's going to be handing out the microphone today. So please feel free to hand it off to anybody else with their hands raised. And for those who I'm waving to, guess what? You're not on camera today because Richard ain't here. So it's a safe space. We like to create that, just let people know. And for those folks who are joining us online via Zoom, you can hit the raise your hand icon located down below under the reactions or the more tab. And for those who are joining us via Facebook, hit that like and also make sure to put your questions and comments inside of the comment field, and I'll bring those into the room as well. So I see the microphone got its way over.
Yep, and we've got 2 in the room. So
here in the room. So Russ, would you go ahead and ask a question?
This is Ross. I get that this is really important. I sense it, but I can't surround it with any words that tell me how it's useful. But I get that it really is critically important.
It has everything to do with how you identify yourself. Do you identify yourself as a human being who is seeking to become more spiritual? Do you identify yourself as a human being who is seeking to get a hold of a new relationship with something that is outside of yourself? Or do you identify yourself as the infinite walking around as you? It's unbelievably important. It has everything to do with our come from place. Where am I coming from? And we can then begin to say, am I coming from my broken, traumatized humanness? Or am I coming from my spiritual truth that has had trauma in this life experience? Am I identifying myself with my past, the circumstances of my life, the situations in which I live in, the global experience of humanity? Or am I identifying myself with something larger that is so much vaster and so much more powerful and more creative and more loving and more capable than being merely human? That's what's so important about this.
I sort of get it.
Just be with it, right? And that's, that's a great place to start. That's a great place to start. I'm going to imagine that this is important. And I'm going to start playing with, okay, what does that mean? How do I think about myself? Where am I coming from? For me, it's always the come from place. If I'm coming from my deepest spiritual, largest spiritual reality, it's so much easier to be calm, to be forgiving, to see beyond the immediate condition, to look for the spiritual reality, to trust that the law is working because I'm standing in the truth. I'm standing in that larger place. It's a great question. And that's why this is so important. These are some of the initiations we go through as we deepen in our spiritual life. Okay.
Hi, Petra. This is JL.
Hi, JL.
So I had a lesson this week on perception. For me, I have a friend who has a Rottweiler. She has a Rottweiler dog, and so when I went to her house multiple times, this dog seemed so massive to me. Like, head was bigger than my body, and he was just so large, and the cage was large. Well, over Christmas this year, I bought 2 Great Danes. And I've watched them grown over the last 9 months.
And they're
my 2 horses.
yes.
And so watching them grow, I went back to our house this week recently, and that Rottweiler was nowhere close to as big as I perceived it to be.
Yes.
But I said that to say, through this spiritual journey,
yes,
my perception has changed.
Yes.
So massively. And the truth is, nothing has changed.
Right.
Right? Because
Right.
what is already is.
Right.
But I can see it a lot differently, a lot clearer. And I'm thankful through this journey, the spiritual journey I've been on. I've been able to see how that separation is not there any longer with me in spirit. I walk as in spirit, through spirit. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you, JL. What a great, see, this is what we need is we need these like kind of concrete examples for ourselves, right? And it's also another way of thinking about it. When we are in that place of knowing that we are spirit showing up in the world as us, it's like taking that 30,000 foot view. And what we perceive as this mountain at the 30,000 foot view is a molehill. And which is why we say there's no big or little in the view of spirit. Spirit has no idea about big or little. It's $1 or $1 million. It's a happiness or bliss. No, there's no difference. Spirit does not perceive that as being too hard, too big, too far away. And so as we move into that larger place, everything looks different. But it itself hasn't changed, right? We're perceiving it from a different space. Beautifully, beautifully shared. Thank you so much, JL, and good for you. Good for you. We have another comment in the room unless we have something online. Nope. All right. Joe's going to bring you the microphone, Darlene.
Hi, I'm Darlene. Could you expound more on, I don't know why this jumped out at me, where it says we enter the absolute through that which appears to be finite. And as soon as I heard that, the word form came to me instead of finite, because the finite must be drawn from the infinite. Could you expound more on that?
Yeah, and
Finite.
yes.
But I don't know why.
Well, I don't think that he means form per se. I don't think that's what he means. I think what he means there is our the fact that we are individualized expressions of the one. That and so and well, let me see. Again, this is these are the many things I love about the science mind. We're not trying to get rid of ourselves. So part of our finite is our form. It's also our psyche. It's our own egoic construct that allows us to work in the world. It's our physical bodies. We're actually seeking to bring the infinite and the absolute into presence, as opposed to trying to shed all of this and only be that. That's, I think, part of what he's pointing at. So the infinite, so the finite isn't just physicality. It's also the idea that we are individualized expressions. So we can't ever become, as long as we're housed in form, we can't ever become infinite. But we, see, ooh, man, it's just so not true, because we are already infinite. So, yeah, so again, I think it's this sort of dual unity thing. We're not trying to get out of our experience. We're not trying to transcend the human experience. We're not trying to leave the physical plane. We're not trying to somehow make all of this bad and wrong and only be spirit. Because the absolute is drawn through the finite. That's how we experience it, is through ourselves, through our very being, as opposed to, oh, this is all crap, I have to get rid of it all so that I can be pure spirit. Do you see? Yeah. I think that's what he's talking about here. That's our intuitive perception. We enter the absolute through that which appears to be finite. And so, because the finite must be drawn from the infinite. What is the finite but the so below? As above, so below. It's another way of thinking about it, right? So I guess that's one of the reasons why I'm so drawn to physical or natural metaphors. Right? So below, creation teaches us about lawfulness. It teaches us about everything reproducing after its own kind. It teaches us about the wholeness of it through ecosystems. There's so many things, right? And so the finite, because the finite must be drawn from the infinite. So even looking at ourselves, we see something about the infinite. Hold it lightly. Let it roll around. See what's revealed. It's a great question. But these are the things that we want to make opposites. What if it's both and? Right? Which is also sometimes so hard to talk about. Yeah. Good. Did you have something, please?
Hi, I'm Belinda, and I'm visiting from Washington, D.C. I'm here working with FEMA, and belong to Divine Science Church back in DC. And so we've studied the Science of Mind book and some of the other books as well. And so seeing myself as a spiritual being helps me to navigate and drop into new places and meet new people more easily, because I don't feel shy. It's like, okay, I'm a spiritual being, I'm here. And so it helps me adapt in new places more easily. And I'm grateful for that.
Beautiful. Thanks, Belinda. Well, welcome, welcome. And yes, right? Because when we know our spiritual being, our identity is slightly different as opposed to, oh, I'm a little shy, or I don't know anybody, or right, and all the human things that we tell ourselves. And it's the same thing with, and then we're confronted with a, massively gnarly problem at work, or we're confronted with some deep unforgiveness in our family or whatever, right? But when I'm standing in that place, it shifts. Oh, I have a much larger capacity to engage with whatever is in front of me because I'm engaging from a different place. Go ahead.
That scripture, well, not scripture, but that passage about finite and infinite. When I hear the word finite, it sounds like there's a limit or there's something, there's a limit. But when you do infinite, it's much bigger. So it's like what you see is when you were talking, it's like what you see is the limit comes out of the finite. And so you can just really expand. You don't have to limit yourself to the finite or something.
Yeah, and you say something really important there, Belinda. This is where, again, I think there's the both and, right? Because we are actually limited. Can't believe I said that out loud. I know. Do. Right? How are we limited? We are housed in physicality. To pretend otherwise is magical thinking, right? And yet what we do is we don't make the finite causal. When we make the finite causal, we're stuck. We're stuck with our past. We're stuck with our identification as the finite, right? But it is actually through the finite that the infinite is expressed. Without the finite, there's no expression. There's no baby's laughter. There's no sunset. There's no holding hands. There's no making a difference in the world. There's none of that. There's no art. There's no science. There's no beauty experienced. The finite is the necessary complement, the necessary two sides of the same coin of the infinite. There's nothing wrong with the finite. Nothing. It is the outpicturing. Well, the only thing that is ever wrong is if we make it causal. I can't do something because the finite has limited me. Right? So to equate them negatively or to equate them so that is something I would be careful about. There's something true about what you're saying. And there's also this opportunity that we are unlimited beings, but we are expressing in this world. This is why you actually have to make choices. Doesn't that just suck? You have to choose, right? You have to decide, am I going to take this job or that job? Am I going to live here or live there? Am I going to go for it or am I going to wait? Am I going to become more spiritual or am I going to go to the bar? Do you see? And well, they can, of course, but do you see, at some point we have to make choices. Otherwise we never move in any direction. And now we're to a certain extent, we are unconsciously guided by the patterns of our culture, our society, our family, our own history, those kinds of things. And so when we choose, a choice automatically limits us, right? You decide to get married. You are no longer single. You have limited one half of the experience of being a human being. Or you decide not to get married. You decide to stay single. You have limited yourself from the experience of being married. there's nothing wrong with one or the other, right? It's just a choice. And in each choice, we will learn and grow. In each choice, we will express and experience. In each choice, we will have an opportunity to be more of ourselves. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's not about a good thing and a bad thing. It's simply choosing the kind of life experience we want to have. I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to make something happen. I'm going to just invite the universe to surprise me. They are just choices, one or the other. And we're afraid to make choices because of this false idea about limitation. We're not limiting, we're focusing. We're deciding, we're choosing so that we can have the experience that we think we want. And then we go, oh, that was cool. Or we go, that didn't quite work out as I thought. Let me make a new choice. Do you see? So yeah, and to me, this is the playground. This is the playground. This is the sandbox. And our choices are simply, I'm in the sandbox. Do I want to play with my little truck or do I want to make a hill? Am I going to let you play with me or do I want to play by myself? Are we going to get a whole collaborative thing and we're going to make a giant thing so that we can be in a sand contest? Or do I not care about that? I just want to make a mess. I just want to play. Right? I mean, and there's no value judgment to either side. It's not good or bad, right or wrong, right? It's just, what do I want to do with this moment in my life, this life experience as it's unfolding? What do I want to do here? And when we do that, we quote unquote limit ourselves. If I decide to go into a sand contest, I limit my ability to just make a mess. Do you see? Because I actually want it to be pretty. I hope, I want it to be all nice. I don't want anything to fall off. But if I don't want to go into the sand contest, I can go and stomp all over it. Okay, comments, yes.
Darlene again. So what that brought up for me is in listening to what's going on inside, I think key things that you said is from my experience, from what am I perceiving this from? And words like finite and form, there is from past limited, get away from that, get away from yourself. Is something wrong with that?
Yes.
And I think the struggle inside, hearing it intellectually, but the struggle is I'm trying to be something outside of myself because form and finite is not good.
Right.
So, but it can be both and. So
it is right.
And sitting here, feeling into myself, form, finite, infinite, all of it's good. It's my experience and how I perceive it at this moment is okay in this moment, in this space.
Yes.
Is what I'm feeling.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And more importantly, I think that it's good, that it's all good. What we're trying to understand is what is causal. Form is only causal if we make it so. Finite is only causal if we make it so. Otherwise, it is simply the outpicturing. It is the effect of the infinite cause that we are. Over and over and over again. It's not about it's not about two opposing or even complementary things. It is fundamentally about process, the directionality of creation, of the life animating, expressing, right? Finite form condition is always in effect, unless, of course, we ourselves make it a cause. How do we make it a cause? We have an opinion about it. We don't like it to be the way it is. Now, right? But I can also make it feedback and say, well, I don't like the way it is. So now I set a new cause in motion, as opposed to fighting the form, making it bad and wrong. I don't like this. It's terrible. It's horrible. Blah, 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 right? I go, oh, no, that wasn't it. So now I set a new cause in motion so that new form, new expression, new experience actually unfolds. So the infinite and the finite are mutually required for full engagement in life. This is one of my favorite things about the science of mind. It's all God. It's all one. That's what oneness means. Your chair, your sunset, it's all one. Your desire to build a business, make a art, make a baby, go be with your family, avoid your family. This is the playground, and this is where the infinite is actually getting to experience itself as individual consciousnesses choosing and seeing and expressing, because the generic life, right, evolution has taken us pretty far, will continue to go, but think about how much more has been added, at least on the earth, good or bad, with consciousness evolving to be able to see and learn about itself. I love this part. So this also means there's nothing wrong with your ego. We're not trying to get rid of your ego, right? Just like we're not trying to get rid of your body. The body is the physical vehicle through which we experience the space-time continuum, right? It's where we have our senses. It's how we manipulate everything, food, painting, anything, making love. It doesn't matter, right? We need our physical body to express. Well, our ego, our psyche, in using the Greek term, which is the structures through which we perceive and engage with life on the, well, I don't know how to say that, non-physical, right? Your ego is what gets you here on time. Your ego is what makes choices like, I think I want to be a painter. I don't care if you don't think I can make any money being a painter. I'm going to be a painter. Whatever, right? The egoic structure is just the construct through which we manage the space-time continuum from heart and mind. Like the body is how we manage the space-time continuum physically, right? And so they're necessary constructs. This is the organ that spirit, that life has used, has built, has evolved, into which self-consciousness can emerge and go, holy shit, look at what's happening. I am becoming aware that there is something more going on than just trying to survive. Wow. Ooh, what if I were a creative being? Do you see? Right? And so none of this is bad and wrong. What's the problem is always the directionality of cause. Where is cause lying? Does cause lie with this expanded, more infinite self that understands its identity? Is that the cause that is moving in the world as us? Or is the cause my sense of physical limitation, my sense of emotional limitation, my sense of psychological limitation, cultural limitation, which is now allowing the physical form and manifestation to be the cause? Do you see? And so they're not like this in opposition to each other. We're not trying to get rid of something. We're trying to understand how it works, the directionality of it. And the more we understand that, the more we know who we are, the more we're aligned with that larger view. Truthfully, the easier our choices are, and actually, quite frankly, the less choices we have to make. Because we're now in alignment and we're feeling, it's like we're dancing, like we're skating, like we're gliding through, and we're feeling into. And then when we go, oh wait, I just tripped over something or banged into a wall, we can make right. We can right ourselves and go, okay, right? So that's why alignment is so important. We're not getting rid of the body. We're not getting rid of the ego. We're actually aligning it with this in identity, why I started out with what's so important. When we know that, now alignment becomes joy-filled, and we're not afraid when something gets in our way, there's an obstacle, something, or all of a sudden some sneaky old pattern comes out and pops us in the head, and we're like, yeah, There it is again, right? So this is why this part of this book is so good. Okay, thus endeth the sermon. All right, happy 4th. Please stay for the celebration. Reverend Karen is kicking off our new month, how to get yourself moving, get yourself going, get yourself moving. And yes, Ryan, what else are we going to talk about?
Well, I just wanted to make a quick shout out. We have some stuff going on right after service today. If you have some talent, then we would love for you to for upcoming talent show that's going to be happening on August 9th. So stay after the celebration today. It's going to be over in the sanctuary. It's led by our platform assistant, Joe Tinker. You might have seen him around on Sundays. So stick around for that. And also, today is the last day to take advantage of the early bird $100 off for the 3-day retreat that's coming up at the end of the month. If you guys haven't signed up for that, you should definitely take advantage of that offer now. It gives you $100 off, and it's going to be an incredible weekend.
Yeah, let me say a little bit about that too. The mental health weekend, you know, we can get really easily anxious. We can become obsessed with the news. We can really find some of our maybe not great ways of engaging the world really being activated, and it can really impact our mental health and so our mental wellness. So this retreat is really an amazing thing. We did it a couple of years ago, last year, I think maybe. People were blown away by their experience. It's very spiritually based, but also with really practical application. And I want to say, for those of you with children, childcare is included. Doesn't matter how many kids you have, you just have to let us know how many are coming. Childcare is included for the weekend. If you're out of town, we have a hotel that we've made an arrangement with so that you can stay nearby. We actually, last year, we had a couple people who lived a little further away who took advantage of that, even though they were in DFW. They just didn't want to drive back and forth. Carol Merlot, Christine Volkmer, and myself. It is a beautiful time together. So yeah, please do think about being a part of it.
Yeah, and one last thing, today is the kickoff of our Gooch Elementary uniform drive. So we are a sponsor of the Gooch Elementary, and we do a couple campaigns every year. This one is really important because it's getting close to school time. There's local families that need our support. And so what we're asking is that you donate to help to get uniforms for our scholars. When they show up to school prepared and confident, they do better. So there is a way to do it online. You can go to the CSLDallas Give page and select Gooch Uniform Drive underneath the fund. Or if you're here on campus with us, we have a poster with a QR code, and there'll be some folks here today talking about it so you can see them and do some donation for that as well.
Good. Okay, I have one more thing to say. Tuesday night, we have our information meeting on our trip to Uganda. Now, for those of you who haven't been around before the pandemic, CSLDallas has been doing sacred travel for 20 years, 25 years, however long I've been doing it with spirit tours. It used to be a gentleman, Jim Kramer, that we used to travel with. And now Karen and I have purchased, and Karen is running this spirit tours. And so we do sacred pilgrimages, spiritual pilgrimages all over the world. This is a new one we haven't done before. And we are exploring, as we go to Uganda, we're exploring the evolution of consciousness, because of course, in the Pangea, when this was all one continent, right? This is where, and then as it grew apart, the idea that human beings evolved out of. But consciousness is so much more than just our consciousness. The Hindus have this great saying, and you've heard me say, consciousness sleeps in the rocks, waves in the grass, moves in the animal, and awakens in the human self-awareness, or self-awareness, wherever self-awareness is awakening. And so as we go on these safaris, and ultimately as we go on the gorilla trekking, who are our closest neighbors, we're going to explore this growing understanding that actually everything is conscious. And consciousness is revealing itself through all these levels of consciousness, of form, of physicality, of the finite, of form, right? It's all consciousness revealing itself. We do sacred time every day. when you come back connected with people like you've never been connected before. So if you've wanted to travel to Africa or to Uganda, we're going to see our school that we're supporting over there. Tuesday night, July 9th, get registered for the information meeting. We really, really, really love to travel together. So we want all of you to come. Space is, of course, limited. So that's when it will open. So check it out. We really want you to come. All right, I guess we're done. Bye for now.